in the early 90s, something happened that changed my life as an artist, but especially as a drummer, when I came across the mind-boggling rhythms of a new electronic subgenre called jungle and drum and bass, which I will play for you a little bit later on. Those beats were so radically different and new that I understood they were no longer abstractions of a real drummer, but they came purely out of the syntax of drum machine programming. So at that point, the vocabulary of drum machine programming had surpassed the vocabulary of real drummers to articulate and express the digital age that had arrived. And at that point, I became completely obsessed with the idea to reverse engineer those electronic drum beats and play them live on an acoustic instrument. And mainly I did it because I loved those beats so much that I was trying to find an opportunity to kind of consume them physically. So in the process, I became something like a musical John Henry. And because I was trying to replicate a machine that could outperform, that could perform statistical density and accuracy that was just simply beyond my human capabilities. So in other words, to play this music is actually very difficult. And in the process to acquiring the idiosyncrasies of drum machine programming, I constantly got confronted with my human limitations. But in the process, I managed to acquire enough technical understanding, or maybe even more important, stylistical abstraction, that I could create the illusion that I could play like a machine. So I actually also created a real expression with a fake, just the other way around this time. And when I passed this threshold, something interesting happened. The human restriction, or the human element that was restricting me actually liberated me, and I could add the element of my emotionality and spontaneity to that genre. And when I first performed this in front of an audience with my band live, my band Nerve, the response was quite intense. So I had an idea that I was onto something, and eventually I figured that something was pointing to the difference in the creative process between programming an automated musical performance or performing music live. Because electronic music to a big extent is still a premeditated medium, while playing music happens in real time. And when it comes to playing music, improvisation has always been the most fascinating aspect to me as a performer, and the most rewarding one too. And improvisation kind of became the key for my current conclusion, so to say. Drum machines and computers and all digital media are binary machines or systems, which means they compute tasks by deciding between yes and no, or in digital language that relates to 0 and 1. Now, when we program an electronic piece of music or an automated piece of music, then we also enter a decision-making process. But the speed of those decisions doesn't really have an outcome on the quality of the finalized product. It's just the faster we can make those decisions, the more empowered we feel and the more fun it is to do it, the more in the flow we feel. That's the word. Now, when we play music in real time, and especially when we improvise, that same decision-making process gets condensed to fractions of seconds, and to a degree where we can no longer compute decisions consciously anymore. Now, when that happens, we enter that magical zone that could probably best be described as an out-of-body experience. And that's a place where it's possible to surrender our intentions and let intuition take over. And this is a zone where it goes beyond yes or no. This is really a place that examines that distance between 0 and 1, which is a zone that a machine cannot compute yet. So while we live in a world where digital technology is driving our evolution, reverse engineering digital culture has pointed my attention to that difference between 0 and 1, or that distance between 0 and 1, which so far has gotten me the closest to comprehend the inexplainable source of my creativity and human existence. And all of this is what I'm hoping to communicate when I will perform another short improvisation for you, which is based on digital culture.